Yo, it's the Talk with B podcast, posting every Tuesday, where we talk about anything and everything, hosted by Branden-Lee, aka B. Lee. Come on and tune in with me on all social media platforms so we can have a talk.
Yo, what's up, guys? It's B. Lee here, of course, and I'm out here talking about, spiritual blindness in my podcast. So the last podcast I was in there, I was talking about, relationships and stuff, and how you grow. Sometimes you outgrow people and things of that sort. And then talking about the media and how it could portray women, right? So now it was funny because I aired that last podcast, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday. I was a little late, so I apologize about it, but I'm trying to get more diligent and staying consistent on getting these podcasts up every Tuesday. But it was funny because as soon as I got done doing that podcast and aired it, literally a day or two later, when I went out to go take a drug test at a Concentra, I ran into a lady who ended up getting really upset and smart with me because I was having a casual conversation and just trying to brighten up their day, right? So I should say they, but her day, right? And she got upset and she thought I was hitting on her. And I was like, dang, that's the media, right? Social media or whatever it is, and talked about, women being in America and not being in America, and how I met somebody over the phone, was in a different country, and it was totally different, right? So pretty much what I'm getting at here is, I'm going to tell you the story. So I was there at the Concentra, and I went to go get a TB test for a job I had coming up here. And I was having a casual conversation, talking to the clerk at the front desk. And she was just being very, very rude. And I was like, okay, well, how's your day going? Good. So the TB test, so let me remind you. So the TB test is like they put a little needle in your arm, and you got to go back in a few days, within 48 hours to 72 hours, and get get it checked. So I went in there before I left. Of course, they probably didn't remember because they deal with so many patients. So I went in there, and the lady, I put my arm on my shirt, like my arm fell off. So I was like, yo, my arm fell off. I got a TB test. I think I might got, TB, tuberculosis, or whatever it's called. Come to find out, she's laughed and she was giggling. I was like, all right, cool. Got her in a good mood. Sweet. So I'm just kicking jokes and stuff. I asked her, about her nails and stuff, because I noticed a lot of different things. And she was like, oh, and I was like, well, what's your favorite color? Because pink was all over her desk everywhere. I assumed it was pink. I was like, is it pink? She was like, never answered. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, I'm a funny guy. And I sat there and I was saying that, I was telling her, I was, just coming at cracking little jokes. I was like, yo, what's your weekend like? Did you go out? Nothing, just dead air. And I'm like, I don't believe this. So it really made me upset because at that point, I felt as though she felt as though I was hitting on her. And I seen she had a ring on her finger. So I was like, oh, is that your, are you married? She was like, yeah, I'm married. I was like, well, how long you and your husband been married? Didn't even answer that. Now, I was upset because me, I'm an entrepreneur, a business guy. You can Google my name and stuff, and I got a bunch of business articles all out, right? So what made me upset is because me being in business, knowing what I know and getting ready to go into like the startup field, I know that the customer is always right. Regardless if you're having a bad day or a good day, when you're inside a workplace and you're wearing that work uniform, you are representing that company that you are working for. So that's what really made me upset. And I went from a 0 to 100 real quick, real quick. So I was really pissed off, and that really messed up my day. So eventually I got into the back room. I actually had to walk outside. I walked outside, I talk about meditations and keeping my own peace, right? And so I walked outside, I got some air. I walked around the building a couple of times. I actually walked off from this lady because she got me so upset because, like I said, I'm a business owner, and I won't play that with any of my employees. And so I walked outside and, I took a walk, and I took some deep breaths, did a little bit of yoga stretching, and I went back into my arena. Because at that point, I'm the gladiator, and she's about to get slayed inside my arena. So I went back. Someone else took me right in the back, and that was cool. I cooled down. And then we were talking about, I ended up talking to the next staff lady. You know, she checked my test and everything, took my blood pressure and all. And we went into, we started talking about the Bible. So I was cracking some funny jokes. So I did a TB, I took the drug test and stuff, and it was past 420 just passed. I was like, did anybody pass their drug test for 420? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like cracking jokes. This is an older lady. She was cool. She took it really cool. So I ended up seeing a tattoo. And I love looking at tattoos and stuff because those tattoos are a permanent mark, right, that you're going to have for the rest of your life, right? So me, I'm in particular, I have a few tattoos myself. I haven't gotten them in a long time because I was young when I got them, and they do have meaning. But sometimes you get people who just get tattoos all over and they just get them just because. I haven't gotten my sleeve or anything finished because I don't know what else I want to put on it because I'm going to have that tattoo for the rest of my life. Her tattoo was a Bible verse. I think it was like Proverbs or something like that. And me being a person that I am, I study all religions. And when I mean I don't really study, I actually read like all Bibles. You know, I learned about the Yahweh, Hinduism, Buddhism, the Quran. See, and that's the thing. I don't understand. I have to ask somebody that's Muslim, Market, let's look it up with the AI. But I don't know if Muslim and Islam is the same thing or if it's separate. I'm not sure. But and also I grew up as a Christian growing up as well. And I consider myself a spiritual person, which I talk about in previous podcasts. Feel free to go back and listen to that. So, and the reason why I do that is so I'm able to debate and I'm able to relate to the people I'm talking to. We have talking topics. So we were talking about Proverbs, and that's her favorite scripture. I actually wrote a song called Stock Options, and I put in there, it's Luke 18:1, which means pray, never give up. So we had a great conversation. So I always ask people, because every religion is a little bit different, and Christians, they believe that, you know, God is God and the Father, Jesus. So as Catholics, they believe that Jesus is God. And then in Muslim religion, they believe that Jesus is a prophet. I always like asking people because I want to know too. I want to know if Jesus ever came, if he ever came back. I like asking, would we know who Jesus is? And some people say yes. Some people say no. Some people say it doesn't even matter. Some people could say, you know, Jesus is even a vessel, you know, or when you're talking to someone, I talked to one guy and he said that he had a conversation with this person. Oh, it was a lady in my Uber ride. And she said that she talked to this one person and she felt as though that was Jesus, but she was Catholic, so she believed Jesus was God. And she said, you know, I felt like I was talking to God. And then it made me think too, because I was like thinking, because I always question a lot of stuff. And I was like, you know what? Like, what if, where's I going with this? So, no, Jesus is God. And then we talk about, you know, spiritual blindness, right? So like, what if we really knew that Jesus was here, but we didn't know who he was because we think he looks some different, a way that we always see, or a way that we think that he looks like. But then also on top of that, we have people who don't believe in Jesus at all. Like in the Hindu culture, they don't even believe in Jesus, right? And then I have very intellectual conversations with a lot of people in these Uber rides and just talking to the general public. And, you know, I asked them too, and like, there's over 500,000 religions, right? But everybody believes that their religion is true. So that's why I say that, you know, I'm a spiritual person, right? And that's why I like looking at everybody's religion, because I want to get an aspect out of everything, right? But then I talk about spiritual blindness, right? There's a Bible verse out of the Christian Bible. It's 2 Corinthians 4:4. And it says here that the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is in the image of God. So I'm doing this podcast today because I was very tired. I had a very rough week, but I was like, it's Sunday. I know I'm supposed to post on Tuesday, and I missed this past Tuesday, but I thought this was perfect because in the Bible, it talks about the seventh day being Sabbath day, the day of rest, right? So on my day of rest, when God talked about to Moses in the book of Deuteronomy on how to make, you know, the days and everything like that, I thought this would be a perfect time to post this thing, right? So that conversation was great with that person I had over there who was taking my drug test there. And inside, I started to feel like I was a preacher a little bit. I was like, you know what? I might be on to something here. So another thing that was very interesting, because I talk about, I go to other people's, I go to all these other religions. It was Easter Sunday. I was moving some stuff from out of my storage unit to my home. And there was a church that I passed. And there's a bunch of people dressed up, and they were walking in there. And now let me remind you, I was moving stuff. I was in gym shorts. I had flip-flops on. My shirt was dirty. I was sweaty. I was funky because I was moving a bunch of stuff. It was a warm day. And something was like, you know what? My intuition was like, yo, go in that church. So I was like, you know what? Maybe that was God talking to me, right? Or Jesus saying, go into that church. So I ended up going in there. And this church was, it was like a mix. There was like Haitians. There was some Spanish people in there. There was a bunch of different cultures in there. And what was interesting when I walked in, the preacher, or I don't know what you call it, the person giving the sermon, they were speaking in Portuguese, Spanish, and French, because I believe that's what they speak in Haiti. The thing is that they welcomed me, right? Now I remember growing up, being in church, and the Bible says, God says, come as you are. Now I didn't know they were having a big event there because it was Easter Sunday, and I don't really pay attention to the calendars and all the different holidays and stuff. But they were having a food thing there. And I went in there, and as soon as I went in there, I was welcomed, right? They said, have a seat, come relax. They said, are you hungry? So I didn't know if they think I was homeless or I was poor. But the thing is that they opened their arms and they welcomed me into their God's home, regardless of who God they think. And then it made me think, because there's a lot of rumors going around that they say, religious people or people who go to church are very judgmental, right? But you got to remember, that's someone else's perspective. And that totally changed my perspective because they opened me with welcome arms. They gave me a plate to eat, a nice big full of food. And I'm a foodie. I love food. And it was really good. And I really it really made me open up my mind to humanity and made me think differently about not only different cultures, but the different people who go to church, right? Possibly if I would have walked somewhere into another church, maybe they would have steered me the wrong way or pushed me away. So that was very cool how they opened their doors there to the place of worship. I do want to remind you, there might be some music playing in the background, so I don't own the copyright to the music. But I thought this podcast would be, or this episode would be great to talk about, because it was an amazing experience blending in there, and it was past Easter Sunday, so you could tell, how long the stay was actually almost ago. But that's why that's why I have this podcast, because I enjoy talking with people. I like humanity all together. And when I was younger, I used to love biology, and biology is the study of life, right? So I feel like us as humans, we need to communicate, right? We need to be transparent. We need to, we got to tell the truth, right? They say that, the truth, people don't want to hear the truth because it hurts. It might hurt our feelings. We might sugarcoat it. We might lie to make someone feel better. I feel as though if we continue to communicate just like that lady did in the beginning when I first walked in there to get my TB test, right? If she would have said, you know what, I have a boyfriend or I have a husband, I would have toned it back a little bit and would have been like, all right, I'm gonna chill. Even though I wasn't hitting on her, I was just having a conversation. But because the type of person and their background and their perspective of where they came from and what they deal with in their own viewpoint of life, she felt as though I was hitting on her. And had she would have been like, hey, fall back, or hey, you're doing too much, or I don't like the way you're talking to me, or whatever, instead of just shutting down and not saying, just stop. Let's stay focused at the task at hand, and let me just get your information typed into the computer. I wouldn't have got upset. She wouldn't have had a bad day or attitude, and then I wouldn't have had to, talk to the manager in an establishment, because as a business person, I don't play that. I'm still the customer. So I guess what I'm pretty much saying here in this podcast is keep an open mind, be transparent, and, just be transparent. Let's live day by day. And this has been a little short podcast. I try to get a little bit more in here, but sometimes less is more. So thank you for joining me on my podcast today. And I'm going to try to remain consistent, give you better content. If you are listening to this podcast and you do notice that some of the podcasts sound a little different, some of them sound better than the others, I'm still working on trying to get it perfected. So if you stick along with me, I guarantee it's going to get better and better as I continue to go. So talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in. It's B. Lee with the Talk with B podcast. I appreciate you tuning in today. And I want you to like and share and subscribe. And of course, always share the podcast. And hopefully we're going to have a nice episode for you next Tuesday.